Hello again, you guys. Welcome back to the channel. It is Comic Kid here again, and today we will be looking at the top 10 moments in superhero cinema today. Now, this will not be a video that's like, oh, the 10 best fights or action sequences in superhero cinema, or anything like that. In fact, I specifically tried to pick moments from certain movies that really just show an understanding of the character at hand. And it is really hard to pick only 10 just because there are so many really good ones over the years. But we managed to do it, and this is my top 10 moments in superhero cinema. As always, before we get started, don't forget to check out the links in the description below. If you give a click and purchase something, it really helps out the channel a lot, even if you don't buy the item that it's directed to. And then be sure to check out my side project, True Criminals, as well. It's available on Spotify and most other places that podcasts are available. But we'll go ahead and get started. And I know this is a top 10 list, but I actually am gonna be listing 11 just because there's a moment in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse that really could land anywhere on this list in my opinion. But I feel weird adding it because it's an animated feature, and I know some people are like, well, why wouldn't animated features count anyways? And they totally should, but it's on the list anyways, and it definitely deserves a top 10 spot. So despite the title, this is actually a top 11 moments in superhero cinema. So coming in last place, I guess we'll say, is the Logan death in Logan. Now, obviously, like, Wolverine hasn't always had the best solo stuff in superhero cinema overall. There is X-Men Origins and then the Wolverine, and you know, both, while most people agree that Wolverine is better, it's still not one of the best X-Men films in Fox's X-Men universe. That said, Logan is undeniably a just total home run for the franchise, and especially seeing Hugh Jackman in that role for that final time is just, I mean, you can call it whatever. It is all sorts of emotions all in one movie, and just like, mwah, chef's kiss. Logan is awesome. But particularly in the way the film wraps up, it just feels so wonderful that this is the conclusion for the character. You kind of can't help but feel like it had to end this way. It tells you everything you need to know. It implies that the story continues on with Laura Kinney or X-23, and everything for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in particular just feels complete. You know, throughout the movie, he's struggling with this, that, the other. He kind of regresses as a character in certain moments, but to see how far this Logan has come makes Logan such a wonderful, wonderful journey, and makes the ending one of the best superhero endings, in my opinion, obviously. But I mean, it's really hard to not put it in any top 10 list. Now, coming in next, so like tied for number 10, is going to be the father-son moment between Miles and his dad in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, as someone who's lost their dad, like, this is a particularly, like, touching moment. At least for me, it really kind of resonated from an emotional standpoint. But I try to put my personal bias aside in anything, but I mean, there's really no denying that this is still an incredibly strong and important moment in Miles's life, in the movie, and for Miles's version of Spider-Man. At this point, you really feel the sense that Miles gets it. And talking to his dad and being unable to respond, it is a wonderful, like, portrayal of the character. And obviously what next is that particular moment really shocks him into being Spider-Man. And from that point especially, Miles just kind of like gets being Spider-Man. And I think it's really, really cool to see just how that moment just really helps shape him to not only stand apart from Peter and be his own Spider-Man, but also just make the movie great as a whole. And so there are plenty of other just wonderful things and wonderful little details and moments in Into the Spider-Verse that I could talk about. And I feel like this moment is just really one of the strongest in the whole movie, so you know it's got to be on here. Alright y'all, now that we're done with the ties, we have technically another tie in number 9, but it's more so much one thing that two movies do really well, rather than two separate things from two separate movies. And the ones I'm talking about are actually the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Now, say what you will about the second one, but Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and Mark Webb's script just really did a great job whenever he was with kids. Both the bridge scene from the first movie and the science-y kid in the second movie are just really strong just reflections and interpretations of Peter Parker. Particularly in the first movie when he sees the scared kid, like, he does not hesitate to just yank off his mask and expose his identity. And he knows that helping this kid is his ultimate focus, and the fact that he's even trying to just calm the kid down, and he's encouraging him, and he's just doing all these things to help this kid is just a wonderful, wonderful Peter Parker moment, in my opinion. Likewise, with the second one, you know, he stops the bullies and whatnot, and he could have just said a quick little quip and then swung off, but he stayed there, he talked with the kid, he fixed the machine he made, he talked science with him, and you see that kind of come back around later at the end of the film. And so I just love how it showed how Spider-Man can be an inspiration to people overall. And despite the fact that these scenes have like little relevance in the whole movie, I think these two moments in these two separate films just really hit home how great this series could have been without studio interference and without Sony trying to set up so much, and just had they continued and whatnot. And I really feel like Andrew Garfield got the short end of the stick in terms of his time as Spider-Man. And these small little moments here and there just do wonders for character development, and I just had no trouble putting them on this list at all. Now, coming in at number 8 is going to be the Man of Steel first flight scene. Again, I know people have their thoughts and opinions about Man of Steel, but it's really kind of hard to say anything bad about the first flight scene. Everything is wonderful, like you're seeing him in the suit for the first time, he's really branching out and trying his powers. You see significantly brighter side to Henry Cavill's or Zack Snyder's Superman in this moment. Hans Zimmer's music is playing and it's just, it's flawless, and just everything about the flight scene just comes together so wonderfully. And I think even haters of the movie can still agree that this is a really, really strong point, if not the best point in the whole movie. And so, yeah, like, as far as superhero cinema scenes go, like, this is definitely one of the better ones. Now, coming in at number 7 is another Spider-Man movie, and that is specifically from Spider-Man 2 by Sam Raimi and with Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. And this particular moment that I'm talking about is the burning building sequence. Throughout the movie, Peter struggles with like who he is and what he wants and stuff like that. That's one of the main themes of the movie. But what I think it really excelled at is highlighting Peter Parker. It gave Tobey a chance to be more Peter Parker than Spider-Man, and particularly with the burning building sequence, it's just a great Peter Parker moment. That man rushes in there knowing he's not Spider-Man anymore, knowing that he has no powers, and he's still doing absolutely everything he can to save the girl trapped in there. And at least in my opinion, that is one of the most Peter Parker things you can do. And so I just absolutely love this particular scene in the whole movie. Like, all around, like, people generally celebrate Spider-Man 2 the most, but this one scene just kind of makes the whole trilogy. You get that they know Spider-Man in this, they know Peter Parker, they get the character, because this one scene is executed so freaking well that it makes sense that it's one of the strongest in the whole trilogy. And so even though the film is a little bit older, yeah, it is still gonna be in this list, you know it. Now, coming in at number 6, and this is our last Spider-Man movie one that we're talking about, and this is really close to the Fire one, and there's one key thing that really does it for me, but it is from Spider-Man Homecoming, when Tom Holland's Spider-Man is trapped under the rubble. And the main thing that gives this one an edge for me is the callback to, obviously, the famous cover where Spider-Man is trapped under the rubble and he's trying to get Aunt May her cure, and he's just got this impossible task of lifting all this weight and manages to do it. And not only does this win some brownie points with me for being a reference, but again, it's just executed so well. And for being our first full outing with Tom Holland as Spider-Man, like, this scene is what fully had me on board. And he's sitting there and he's struggling and he's like, "Come on, Spider-Man," and I don't know how you're just not in the theater like, "Yeah, come on, Spider-Man, go." And just, I mean, I love it. Like, everything about it. I could rewatch this scene like 1,000 times and not get sick of it. It is just phenomenal, and that's really all that I have to say about it. But that is the last of the Spider-Man movies that I'll be talking about, and so yeah, it's really close. Like, if you had asked me maybe tomorrow, then I might put the burning building sequence above it, but it's that freaking close. But anyways, coming in at number 5 is the Flash Justice League sequence in the Snyder Cut. Again, I recognize people don't like Snyder and have their issues with slow-mo, and I'm not saying Justice League was his best work or anything, but I mean, again, it's just really hard to say anything bad about the Flash sequence. Junkie XL's score, especially just that electric guitar that starts as Barry freezes time, it's just so well done. This is obviously Flash's, standout moment in the film, and I thought it was just absolutely incredible seeing everything kind of rewind and come back together and all that. Just wonderful. Barry's dialogue, Ezra Miller's performance, there's very little bad things to say about this, and I think, again, even the haters would agree that this is definitely one of, if not the strongest points in the entire Justice League movie, so. But to move on to number 4, we have the jail scene from The Dark Knight. Now, I feel like, characterization aside, this still hails as one of the best and most iconic sequences in all of superhero cinema, just because it's flawless. Everything about this scene is just incredible, and it's definitely the strongest Batman and Joker interaction on screen to date, at least in my opinion. But just seeing both actors just fully enveloped in their roles here, and obviously this is the key moment in Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, and just seeing Batman just throw him around and he's not breaking because he knows he has the upper hand no matter what. And just everything about it, this whole scene is what makes this movie so great. I'm not saying this scene alone makes this movie so great, but this whole scene is what really cements The Dark Knight's role as one of the best superhero movies ever made, and it's just wonderful. What else are you gonna say about it? It's just good. Now, coming in at number 3, and again, not everyone's favorite movie probably, it's arguably the weakest of the 3, but in Captain America: The First Avenger, when Tommy Lee Jones throws the dummy grenade and skinny Steve Rogers just runs over to it and armadillos it while everyone else scatters, is an incredibly underrated scene and just moment in all of superhero cinema, in my opinion. This is the most Steve Rogers thing they could possibly do. This is such an important moment too, because this is literally the deciding factor in, okay, we're gonna go with this guy over anyone else because of his heart. This guy is just a hero through and through. He's a good guy, just no matter what. He's not a coward. He is Captain America in that moment, despite the fact that he hasn't had the serum yet. And I do get why some people dislike this movie overall, but I really feel like the first Avenger did a really solid job of showing an understanding of who Steve Rogers is. And yes, I do prefer the Winter Soldier as well, but I mean, I certainly wouldn't say that the first one is lacking in understanding of the character. And despite the other flaws of the first Avenger, this scene is just incredibly underrated in my opinion. Now, coming in at number 2, and this one's kind of like a really long one in my opinion, but the final moments of The Dark Knight Rises are just incredible in my opinion. And I would argue that structurally and like narratively, Rises is the weakest of Nolan's Batman trilogy, but the finale really shows an understanding of Batman as a character, Batman as a symbol, what Batman means to Gotham as a character, and I don't think people appreciate the ending enough. But the two scenes that really stand out to me are when the police are arriving on the scene and you have the mercenaries and whatnot ready to battle them, and then Batman swoops in on the bat, blows up the 2 tumblers, and then flies off, and just seeing all the cops cheer for him and then take action, it just blows my mind every time. Like, it's a wonderful scene and I get a little teary-eyed watching it, what can I say? But the second moment that really stands out in this ending for me is when Batman's got the bomb hooked up to the bat, he starts flying, he's trying to get it out over the bay, and one of the missiles that's tracking him, hits a building, blows up, and Joe Gordon-Levitt's character starts to think that, hey, the bomb's going off, and he tells the kids in the bus to get down, and then the one kid on the bus is like, no, it's Batman. And you're like, you're damn right, kid, it's Batman. And like, no other moment in superhero cinema really has made me just want to just stand up and cheer. And then obviously, Hans Zimmer comes in with that just perfectly timed drum beat, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful finale all around, in my opinion. But again, I feel like these two moments just showcase Bale's and Nolan's Batman just very well. Say what you want about the movie overall, but these two scenes are just so well done that, yeah, they're in the top 3, obviously. Now, for the final one, as what I'm sure will be no surprise to anyone, is going to be the Tony Stark snap at the end of Avengers Endgame. Now obviously there are plenty of moments that could have made this list in Endgame alone, but specifically what's great about the Tony Stark snap is that this is absolutely everything that 10 years of storytelling has kind of built up and culminated into. Obviously it is wonderful to see Captain America lift Mjolnir and see Steve be worthy and all that, and it's mind-blowing to see everyone come through the portals and hear Sam say "on your left," and there are plenty of moments you could have picked from in Endgame. But specifically, the Tony snap is just what makes it such a good movie overall. And I think, everything started with Iron Man. It makes sense to end it with Iron Man. And Robert Downey Jr.'s performance in this is just flawless as well. And so, yes, obviously, in terms of like importance, cinematography, music, performance, whatever you want to call it, as much as some people may take superhero cinema for granted, there's really no denying how just perfect this single moment is. But that is everything that I have for you guys today. As always, let me know what your favorite moments in superhero cinema are down in the comments section below. Don't forget to check out the links in the description, and be sure to hit like and subscribe. But that is it for this week, and I will see you guys again real soon.